going to be talking about the synergy between Rain and Darrius. Now, this is kind of interesting, even for me. I've completely 180'd from thinking that Darrius is a completely pointless cameo terrain. Mainly, I was just salty that this wasn't a thing. But I've 180'd to believe that he's probably the most enjoyable cameo, at least for me, to play with Rain in the game. Now, you can skip to where I actually start talking about what these two do together, but I do just want to talk about why Darrius feels fun compared to other cameos in this game, because I have taken about a 1-month break since I last played this game, and I came back and decided to try out Darrius, and it felt so much fresher, so nice, so different. And I thought a bit about why that is. And I think that's because Darrius is one of the most well-implemented or well-executed versions of the cameo system in the game. Because when you're playing with him, it doesn't really feel like you're playing as Darrius. It really feels like you're playing as Rain, but with this little assister friend that just occasionally comes out, only once you've already successfully played as Rain. And what I mean by that is, usually with other cameos, like if I have Serena or something, a main part of my game plan is of course just, randomly in neutral throwing out the back cameo Serena knives and doing random buttons into Serena knives because it's safe and it's just really good, and you always just do the same combos, and that feels like it's the most kind of important part of your game plan. Same goes with Striker, throwing out random grenades that just fly out when I do something unsafe, or when I'm doing my zoning and random grenades just come out, keep me safe. I get combos from them because the opponent tries to hit me back and then they get hit by them, then I get a full combo. Throwing out those grenades feels like it's the most important part of my game plan, even more so than any of my own toolkit as my main character, which is kind of weird. But with Darrius, he only really becomes useful and comes out once I've successfully played my character well. Once I've actually played as Rain, he comes out to help me to keep it be my turn and to keep making my reigning more interesting. So, obviously, he's been buffed, and the reason I'm trying him out now is because he's got this new move, Down Cameo, which is an ambush. And what I think is really interesting about these tools is, like I said, you're not using them all the time in neutral and stuff, you're only using them once you've successfully got the character. So once I've successfully gotten an anti-air and the opponent's knocked down, or I've hit them with this string and they got hit by like my stagger, maybe they got hit by the last hit of it, and they got blasted full screen, then I get to call out this cameo attack. Or maybe I've successfully caught someone with an anti-air or hit them with this projectile, and once I get hit by that, then I can summon this. Because this ambush attack can only be called once the opponent is knocked down or in the air or just not in control of their character, basically, in any state that is airborne or knocked down. So it's quite different to any other ambush attack. And I really like that. It is pretty powerful, but I like that it's specific to, I've already done my zoning, and now that I've done it correctly, now it's pretty scary. And we'll go into why this is such an interesting and useful attack and all the different ways you can mix up with this. But let's just keep talking about what Darrius feels different to other cameos. He also has this, which, is probably his most notorious attack. And although it is an ambush that hits the opponent, I claim to be a hater of ambush attacks, but this one is probably one of the most well-scaled in the game, because as you are probably aware, this uses his entire cameo meter. So if I do want to do something like this, like keep my armor safe and get a combo from it, or combo from things that I usually normally wouldn't get combos from, or extend things at the end, keep myself safe from armor like I already mentioned, I have to spend my whole cameo meter. Which I think is fair, because ambush attacks and keeping yourself safe and getting combos from your launchers and your armors is pretty crazy, and I think it should be expensive. And it feels so much more interactive to use Darrius, because his cameo meter actually kind of means something to you. You're using him in stuff like this, but if you are getting near the end of a round, and you're against a Johnny or something, and I'm like really scared of his pressure, I'm probably not going to spend Darrius when my life is below 30%, because I might really want to go for just a safe armor. And if it'll this 20% that I deal from that, it's not crazy, but if that wins me the round, then I'm gonna save my Kameo meter in order to do that. I'm also not constantly spending my Kameo meter to do combos and random stuff like this. Like, that is not worth it. But in certain situations, like if the opponent is low life and they're at 20%, I know that whenever I go for an anti-air or something, if I call out Darrius, I'll be able to kill my opponent. Or if I'm even in a normal combo. Darrius isn't really too worth spending, he doesn't add that much extra damage, but if I know it's gonna kill, then it is worthwhile spending all of that Kameo meter. But it feels so much more interesting and interactive and thoughtful to use Darrius than other Kameos, because it's not just something that you do. Like with Serena, you always go into the thing, you spend 1 or 2 Kameo meters just to do the combo. But with Darrius, it's not implied, it's not default. You have to choose everything that you do intentionally, so when you actually get something done successfully or you use Darrius to end a round, it feels really good because you actually made a good choice there. And not only is it more like costly and thoughtful to do things, and like it's not like a default spammable option, it's also far more nuanced and interesting. He's got so many options off of this. You've got, I think, a total of 4 options anytime you try to use this. So I could just do it on its own and get, you know, a regular rain combo. Or I could, if it's at the end of the combo and I don't really have much, you know, juggle gravity to get much going, I can go for this really damaging ender. Or I can go for this overhead setup where, you know, you get this overhead low mix-up that both launches and, you know, a lot of mix-up, a lot of high potential damage, but so you sacrifice a bit of damage in your combo. Or if it's, say, on block and you're going for some kind of weird pressure, you can get a lot of safe chip damage. Like that's, what, I don't know, 10% or something from chip damage, -7 and full screen. There's just so many interesting applications with this Kameo, and I really, really enjoy it. So now that I'm done ranting and talking generally about why I think they're cool, let's get into the specifics, and we'll start from the least interesting and go to the most interesting. So back Kameo and forward Kameo are going to be our least used things. You know, there are potential uses, like when I'm around this range, kind of, you know, when you throw out random Serena knives or something, just something around this range where rain is really not good, because anytime you try and go for your projectiles, the opponent's probably going to hit you out of it, like Johnny just dashes up and goes for forward 1 or something. This range is pretty bad for rain, but Darrius, you know, I can throw this out, it's decently fast for this range, has really good reach, and is totally safe. So if my opponent is blocking, it pushes them far away, and I'm -7. So that's a pretty good deal. If I'm in neutral and I just want to throw something out, I'm not really sure what to go for, this is a pretty decent option. And it's also pretty good chip damage, safe, long-reaching, they're all mids. Yeah, it's pretty simple. You can imagine where you would use it, but it's not really too useful in pressure because you can get poked out of it in basically every situation. But if you want the chip damage, sure. The forwards Kameo, it does lead to the setup, but there's no common way that you're going to combo into this, unless you've gotten like a fully charged projectile somehow, or a whirlpool and you want to sacrifice a full combo to go for this. I wouldn't really recommend that. Maybe if you're feeling cheeky and the opponent has respected you from some of the other setups we'll be going over, you can do it like this and get some interesting stuff going that way, or, you know, use it, just, you know, random resets off of stuff like this where the opponent may not expect it. There's potential for stuff like that, but once again, it's not something we're going to be using too often, I don't believe. The things that are going to be more often are going to be our neutral Kameo ambush and our down Kameo that can be done only when the opponent is knocked down. And let's talk about the down Kameo first, because that's the most interesting one, and that's what really drew me to the character. So unlike his neutral ambush, which takes the entire bar, this one can be done with half a bar. And it looks like the big flip overhead that, you know, kills the opponent, but it doesn't actually launch. But even though it doesn't have the big bouncy launch, you can still get combos off of it in a lot of situations. Say for example, I've knocked the opponent down, I haven't called out. If I release him as I get like my jumping attack or something, the opponent is in the air for a split second before they hit the ground, and I can get that full aerial string. Or if I get him to hit like in the middle of my string and something hits just after Darrius hits, then the thing will keep hitting and the opponent will just get juggled. Same goes if he does it and I go for a low afterwards, something like this, you know, extremely hard to block things, that will combo. So there are really interesting things we can then get off of this. And keep in mind, even though I'll probably just do it off of this as the example, this can be done off of any time you get a knockdown. So down twos, random geysers, projectiles. Just literally any combo, any knockdown, you're able to get this down kickoff, even off of your throw, by the way. And just before we get into them, so that you're convinced, they can't be jumped out of, even the projectiles, which was the most iffy one. Let me have the opponent jump forward, and I'll go really far away. The opponent can't jump out of these, so they're not like super easy to avoid, just to get that clarified and out of the way before we go into the cool setups. So, when I get this and I'm going for these knockdowns, you know, there's a bunch of things we could go for. One of the most interesting to me is whirlpool mix. So, when I'm doing this, the opponent usually isn't ready to block overhead against rain, because he's never had an overhead, especially at these ranges. So anytime I get a knockdown, I can throw out this overhead. As long as I time it correctly, it'll hit the opponent right as they wake up, and the whirlpool would hit right afterwards. And this basically is good for any way that the opponent tries to block this. If my opponent is in blocking low the whole time, they'll get hit by the overhead, and even though they, you know, will block the whirlpool, getting hit by that overhead, as you can see there, means that you get this really, really meaty whirlpool. Which is so meaty or so plus that going for that jump in there afterwards hits so closely to the low that it actually can't be up blocked. So you get a safe jump in into whatever pressure afterwards. That's pretty powerful. So you get some easy plus frames if the opponent isn't expecting that overhead, and then after you've done it a bunch of times and they are kind of getting ready for that overhead, they may not successfully block this low, especially if you change the timing up there and the overhead doesn't actually hit. Then they'll get mixed up. You can make the overhead hit very closely to the low. And what's interesting about this is that you can hold Darrius down and delay it for a very long amount of time. So you can call him out and actually just not have him hit the opponent. So they're expecting that overhead to come out and bonk him, and they're ready to block overhead and low. But if the overhead doesn't come out, they just get hit by the low. Or you can, if they are getting really good at blocking that, then whoops, you can't even switch up the order and make it really plus by making him hit after the low. There's just like an infinite number of ways that this could be extremely useful to you, and you get a combo of it if they get hit by the low, or you get immense plus frames if they get hit by the overhead. And even if they block both of them, you're still immensely plus. So that is, to me, one of the coolest ways of using this, because this, of course, also applies during zoning. You can throw out whirlpools, you can throw out Darrius at any time that you land a projectile successfully, and let me just get full screen. You get all this overhead low mix, and you can even delay it, make it a lot more tricky, low overhead. And there is also a timing where they hit on the same frame, and it's a genuine unblockable, but that of course is quite hard to do. But the fact that you can do this is extremely hard to mix up, and it makes your zoning so much more interesting because you have this amazing zoning that leads to either crazy plus frames, crazy mix, leads to combos if you do it successfully. It is so cool, and it gives you so much more use to your whirlpool. Now every time I'm going for this, my opponent's scared. Like that there, he hit by the overhead into the low, so the mix is so good here. Can't cover all of the options because it is so complicated, but I'll make a complete compilation of every option you have off of this kind of stuff. But it is really cool, and that's just one option we have off of it. That is going for like a knockdown into Darrius, and then mixing up when the overhead and low connect on my opponent. Then you also have the option of, instead of going for mix, just going for guaranteed pressure. Because the Darrius Kameo, he can't be uplocked. That means that if his hits first, then they just can't uplock this sequence and you get a safe jump in. And jump ins are really good because they just give you a lot of free pressure. So you can go for stagger pressure, go for your long ass strings, get a bunch of chip damage, or just go for staggers into throws. Getting any kind of guaranteed pressure with Rain is pretty scary because he's got decent staggers and he does have this big overhead, and if you're getting a free jump in into it, that can be some pretty interesting mix because now you have the threat of the overhead or the throw or just jumping in and going into a low. Rain's mix, when it's guaranteed, is honestly pretty scary, so even though we're not going for this like overhead whirlpool mix instantly, being able to go for guaranteed pressure after any knockdown, thanks to Darrius jumping in like this, is really strong. Or like this. Really, really cool. And if the opponent is just like kind of silly, they try to do some kind of armor or jump away or try and do anything, and they do get hit by it, with the right timing, it does also lead to a combo because you can just dial in the aerial attack string and get a full combo from there. And of course, since they're both hitting at the same time, this applies to the whirlpool setups as well. The opponent is not easily able to get out of this at all. Whoops. That applies to any of the weird whirlpool setups we were just talking about, and same goes with the jump in. And if you do the correct dial-in of jump 2, forward 3, 4, 3, as you can see there, I did the dial-in for the aerial combo and the grounded forward 3 in the same dial-in, and then you don't even have to react to if the opponent is on the floor or they get hit by the overhead. You just get the full combo either way. Pretty cool. Right, so that is kind of the strength of this overhead. You get to do it from any of your zoning, any of your regular knockdowns. It just makes your Oki so much better. You get better Oki from your zoning, and that makes it really a lot more worthwhile going for stuff like this then as well, because now just getting proper knockdowns that you're aware of, even if it isn't tons of damage, can lead to a really good situation, and we love those. But I think that's about the end all for this, except there are a few other setups. Once again, I won't go over everything right now, I don't think, because there is just really a lot. Like there is stuff like this, where if you're in the corner, that leads to a full combo, or you can also make them hit on the same frame, and yeah, here's in the corner, it leads to a full combo. It's effectively unblockable, and there's other interesting things where you can combo from it if it's like that. The opponent is expecting the low, and you get a full combo from it. or you can go hit confirm, just go for the regular combo when they get hit by the low. You can easily hit confirm that, or if you do see that they block that, you can just let it go and be hella plus. There's just basically infinite potential here, which is why I covered it in quite a long compilation in a different video. So yeah, that's a really cool thing. I love it. I think it's really fun. Makes your zoning and everything better. Now, how do we use this attack? The very slow kick. Now, like I mentioned before, it's not something you're going to be using all the time. It's going to be used in more edge cases where either you're getting a combo that kills the opponent and you're only doing it when they have low life, or you're doing it to have a safe armor attack that also launches for a full combo, or you just, you know, feel a little goofy and you want to go for some interesting pressure that does a lot of chip damage. Or you really particularly want to go for a setup after your combos. Now, honestly, that kind of simplifies it and makes it, that's about all, but yeah. If you're getting it from a down 2 or something else that you can't normally combo off of, you have those as your main options. You can go for a simple regular combo like this. Unfortunately, the gravity is not so good, so you're only going to get about 25%. If the opponent is particularly high up, which they probably will be if they've jumped, then you can get this combo a little bit more easily. It does a little bit more damage, but you're not going to be getting tons of damage from this no matter what you do, really. The same applies if you used an armor attack. You can get this combo if the opponent is up high. To get a little bit more damage, but as you can see, you're still not getting tons. So don't expect that you're going to be getting a lot of damage. It's more about the utility. Because if the opponent does... oh wait, do I have this... What's this recording? If the opponent knocks you down and tries to go for some things afterwards, of course, you know, you're easily just getting a full combo, and if you are wrong, and they do just bait you, then you're safe. And also, these follow-ups are armored, so not only are you keeping yourself safe and you're plus and can go for whatever pressure you like, if you do just want to go for something a little bit more guaranteed and not going to get poked out, you have the option of going for this, which is armored and leads to that, which does a bunch of damage and is totally safe as well. If the opponent blocks the whole way, it's -7. Pretty awesome. And yeah, you get some interesting pressure, either if you're using it in like a pressure sequence to do a bunch of chip damage, or if you're just doing it after a wake up to keep yourself safe, you get some cool stuff. Now, going for combos after a long combo is a little bit difficult because a lot of your gravity and juggle potential really gets eaten up, and the opponent just falls out. So what I recommend if you do just want to get a little bit of extra damage before the opponent, so that the opponent dies at the end of a round, I recommend just going for the follow-ups, because they actually do quite a lot of damage. As you can see there, you're getting over 40%, nearly 45%, which isn't tons for using the whole Kameo bar, but the point is that you just spend it if it wins you the round, and otherwise you don't, and you just end it normally and go for this good Oki stuff. If you do feel like going for some really interesting Oki with this kind of stuff, there is, of course, a lot of mix-up potential you can go for there, and a lot of it is really similar to this stuff, except it's just slightly higher reward, because if the opponent gets hit by the overhead, it just automatically goes into a full combo. So that means anytime you go for this, you can either fake out the opponent and go for the low first, because if you hold it down, you go for the low and then the overhead, then that just goes freely into a combo. Or if you do have the overhead fit first, then you can go for the meter into the combo. Or you can have it so the overhead doesn't hit at all, and just go for your regular combos that way. Yeah, you can fake out going for low and just go for the overhead and get a full combo. And because this is a nice high launch, you can also get some extended combos like this to get a little bit more damage from them. But as you can see, the mix-up potential is pretty similar to doing stuff like this. And actually, going back to this, because this is kind of the coolest part, there is one mix that I kind of forgot to mention here. When we're going for, if you're like up close and you're just going for overhead low mix, going for your back two, release Darrius into the launcher is a pretty simple hit confirmable way to get like unblockable mix. So if I do this, I do it and release Darrius like just a second after I press the button. As you can see there, he doesn't connect, but that's good because this version of Darrius doesn't go into combos. And this back two is hit confirmable if you are, you know, decently fast at hit confirming, because I can input it like now. Oh, now. You can really delay the input of the launcher and it still works. So you can see that the opponent gets hit by it and then you go for the launcher. And why that is interesting is that, see, I'm just getting a full combo and it's almost like Darrius did nothing there. So why did I call him? It's because if the opponent was blocking here, I just released him with the exact same timing as I did with the combo, but this time I saw that they didn't get hit by the back two, so I didn't go for my launcher. And then doing nothing after that means that I'm just really plus, and it went for a low overhead mix that was easy to hit confirm into a full combo, or just easily not hit confirm into block mix-up plus frames. So that's another cool, simple setup, but it's more so when you're up close. Maybe after a down two, or after a sweep, or a grounded geyser. But anything that's like far away like that, you know, you're not gonna dash in to go for your back two or from your throw. Like double dash into that. This is not really gonna be when you're using it. But I think that's all to talk about when it comes to Darrius. There are a lot of mix-ups and a lot of setups and block strings that I can potentially show, but I'll just leave that to the compilation video so that it doesn't sound too repetitive, because I'm already feeling the broken record vibes at the moment, so I hope that hasn't been felt too much throughout the video. But it's a really interesting team. I really enjoy how you have to consciously spend your meter well, and doing Darrius things with this mix is really fun, and a lot of people have not fought against it online, so it works really well a lot of the time. And just, yeah, being able to use Rain's toolkit to like be strong and be successful, because now getting hit by these projectiles actually has consequences, because they'll get thrown into this mix of overhead, lows, plus frames, full combos from any of my projectiles is just such an amazing feeling. And once they start respecting it, then it gets even better, because then you can like hold down Darrius, go for full combos when they get hit by the low, fake them out with the low overhead, or overhead then low into the plus. It's so good, and I know I'm rambling now, and I probably have been the whole time, but it is really fun and it really makes me enjoy this game again. So Darrius, a good pick. I'm gonna make a bunch of online videos with him now, just to, you know, hopefully try and convince you. But Chameleon, I believe, is gonna be coming out in like a few days. So if she comes in and, you know, is in the spotlight for a bit, do not let this take away from the fact that I think Darrius is probably in my top 3 cameos with Rain. And if I play a little longer, he may become top 1, because he's just so much fun. But that's a long rambling video. It's been a while since I've made any sort of guide, so I have to get back in the rhythm, and I really wanted to talk about Darrius. But thanks for watching. I'll see you in whatever's coming up next. Bye!